Hello, this is for Dr. Graziano's MBA 6000 Human Resource Management for Competitive Advantage course. I am doing my strategic paper on Apple's human resource strategy. Apple, uh, one of the most admired brands. Many of us own devices manufactured by Apple. I'm even recording this on an Apple MacBook Pro. They are trusted by many around the world. They are among the world's most valuable companies, surpassing a market capitalization value of over $1 trillion, dollars, the first company to ever reach such a milestone. Apple has a global workforce of over 137,000 across many corporate and retail divisions. However, they proclaim that they are responsible for creating 2.4 million jobs indirectly through their supply contracts. Apple has taken proactive measures that implement human resource policies to instill a positive workplace culture that promotes equity with its policies on recruitment, diversity, inclusion, and compensation of employees. As defined by Apple themselves, their objective as a company is to obtain stellar products and services within tight time frames at a cost that represents the best possible value to our customers and shareholders. If that sounds like a daunting task, it's the same one we assign ourselves. It's worth noting that Steve Jobs, from the early days of Apple, only wanted to hire and work closely with people who had type A personalities. Steve Jobs was a well-known perfectionist. When looking at Apple through a holistic lens, it is beneficial to do a SWOT analysis to look at its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A little throwback from Introduction to Management. Strengths. Apple has a well-earned reputation for providing high-quality products to consumers. They possess significant market share in the smartphone, laptop, and music play space. The iPhone takes up 45% market share in the United States alone and 19% worldwide. They have a strong balance sheet and have a lot of liquidity, with solid cash flows and over $100 billion in cash on hand. Users can take advantage of their ecosystem, which seamlessly transfers data from one device to another in real time. Apple's revenue sources are not very diversified. 62% of their revenue alone is from iPhone sales, contributing 141.3 billion to their overall revenue. Their devices are also very expensive for the average consumer. For example, the typical MacBook Pro can cost over four figures easily. Very few are sold below $1,000. That was the weaknesses. I apologize if I didn't already mention that before. Um, Opportunities. Due to Apple's large cash reserves, they have the monetary resources to make potential acquisitions and can hire the best people in the tech industry to help develop new products. Threats. Apple recently struggled to catch the attention of new consumers due to the small, minuscule changes in Apple's annual iOS updates, which is the operating system used on all iPad and iPhone devices. While Apple's main smartphone competitor, Samsung, has relatively small market share in the US compared to Apple, globally Samsung is not too far behind. Samsung possessing 18% of worldwide market share compared to Apple's 19%, as I just stated a minute ago. The iPad presents few differences from its cousin, the iPhone, with the main distinguishing factor it being its display size. When we look at Apple's organizational structure, Apple adheres to the traditional corporate title model, employing several vice presidents, senior vice presidents, chief officers in their executive ranks. Tim Cook, is the CEO of Apple. Interestingly enough, there are three executives who are respectively charged with leading software engineering, hardware engineering, and internet software and services, whereas traditionally all of those responsibilities would fall under the jurisdiction of the chief technology officer at many other companies. Recruiting. Applicants usually go through 3 rounds of interviews. I was once told by an Apple Store employee actually that it is harder to get a job at Apple than it is to get into Stanford. First round is so how it works typically is that the first round is a group interview, and they're expected to take part in role-playing scenarios as both the customer and the employee. Second round is done remotely over the phone with the store manager, where they ask about the candidate's previous work experience and their opinion on Apple. Please note that not every candidate is guaranteed to make it to the second round of interviews. Then the final interview is held on site, where the manager assesses the candidate's attention to detail. For example, they're asked not to wear a shirt and tie if I'm clearly not following that rule. Uh, if if the hiring manager deems the candidate a good fit for Apple, then they will receive a hiring decision notification through email or by phone uh, in a week at the most. Diversity and inclusion. So this is a hot topic issue for corporate America these days, as we all know. Apple has been proactive on diversity issues, and CEO Tim Cook is openly gay and has said that he feels an obligation to promote diversity, being a minority himself. He is a supporter of the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, and on a side note, he has criticized his home state of Alabama for discriminatory workplace legislation. Apple has created internal diversity networking organizations as support systems for employees and minority groups, such as Accessibility at Apple, which represents employees who have a diagnosis of a disability, Amigos at Apple, representing the Latinx population, Black at Apple, and Pride at Apple, representing the LGBTQ population. Apple has been recognized for strong diversity initiatives, receiving the Most Admired for HR Companies by HR Executive, a niche publication for human resource professionals. Civil rights activist Jesse Jackson even praised Apple, saying it is perhaps the most inclusive of any tech company. Compensation and benefits. Employees get to enjoy many benefits, such as healthcare, a 401k retirement plan, a shuttle service, and transportation stipends for headquarter employees. They also give the opportunity for advancement, generous pay compared to those in similar fields and industries. The average software engineer at Apple makes over 100,000. However, the amount varies based on experience. So then I look at Tim Cook's compensation. So the CEO, Tim Cook, earned $11.56 million during the last fiscal year, which is down 4.1 million actually from 15. Cook is paid a $3 million base salary, uh, which, by the way, is only a fraction of his total pay. He's 67 million in incentive pay, which makes uh, which makes up the majority of his compensation. So the incentive pay is tied to, it's not a bonus, but it's tied to the financial um, performance of Apple along with the performance of its stock. Uh, and he receives approximately $880,000 in other compensation, such as security and private plane expenses, vacation pay, 401k contributions, and term life insurance. To conclude, Apple's human resources division has made significant achievements and have been publicly recognized for them. However, they're not perfect. Employees have reported the lack of a work-life balance and how there is a sense of bureaucracy, which can make addressing issues to management more difficult, and it heightens the prevalence of workplace politics. The current culture of innovation and collaboration is reminiscent of the principles Steve Jobs left behind. Apple has successfully promoted diversity and inclusion from an institutional level, implemented recruiting protocols to ensure that they are obtaining the best quality talent while providing generous compensation and benefits. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed my presentation. Take care.